Okay, I'm just making a really quick video about my thoughts on the brand new Toyota Supra 2020. So basically, it seems that the market, everybody who's journalists and wannabe professionals and this, that, and other, it seems that they've already started talking down about the Toyota Supra because basically Toyota is not giving them the car that they actually wanted. Now, you know me personally. You know I hate these foreign cars. You know that I can't wait to get next to one of these things next to a light with a SRT product and absolutely destroy who's in the next lane. You already know me. So I can't even pretend to be unbiased about it because you absolutely already know what I'm planning to do the second I get a chance to one of these things. I'm going to dust it. I'm going to gap-tize him. He's going to get gapped so fucking badly, the only thing he's ever going to see is the words SRT in front of him, like very, very far. So here's the thing. So I can't pretend to be unbiased because I absolutely am biased. I'm just telling you just like it is. That's what I am. But okay, let's pretend for a second that I wasn't biased. Why do I think that this car has failed based on what I know about the target audience? Why do I think that this car has already failed based upon what I understand that this audience wanted out of this car? Well, it's actually very, very simple. Okay, so the first problem is the damn thing's ugly. I look at the back of it and it looks like a Fiat product. It looks like, I honestly, off the top of my head, I can't name any of those Fiat cars because I really don't care about any of them. But it reminds me of one of those cars that Fiat makes. It's one of those small, ugly-ass cars I'd never want to drive. Now, Toyota has been in a habit recently of making some of the ugly-ass cars, the ugliest, shitty, ugly-ass shit cans that I could even imagine. Like, I mean, what designer would literally look at the Predator on Aliens versus Predator and then say, hey, you know what? Let's make a car that looks like that. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like that person should have been fired. But the thing about it is there's people who are locked into Lexus leases and they lease Lexuses as like, a reflex action. They just do it. They're old. They have those really big buttons in those cars. They make it really easy for geriatric eyes to see. So they don't really care how ugly those cars are. So they just drive them around until they, die. And then the car goes to their kid and then the kid takes it back and returns it off lease and whatnot. So anyway, it was ugly. Now, I remember going to the auto show, the New York International Auto Show, which I will be at again this year. And they had showed us the FT1 concept, which people expected that this ugly-ass thing was going to look like. Now, personally, I think the FT1 itself was ugly. But the thing about it is people who buy these cars, I don't know if they really have any taste or anything. So it was ugly. The LFA was ugly too. And the LFA did very poorly against better looking cars like Lamborghini and Ferrari. So anyway, that, didn't do well. A couple of people bought a couple of them. Nobody really cares. Most people forgot it even existed. Now, this FT1, considering the way that thing looks, I don't think you would have ever been able to get one of those into production and still have the price be like affordable, which I'm going to get to later in talking about price. But this thing would have probably costed over $100,000. So they would have ended up having to put a lot of power into it just to make it, seem like a reasonable competitor to its next of kin rival coming from Nissan, the Nissan GTR. Now, I've driven the Nissan GTR, and even though I think that car is ugly too, the Nissan GTR is probably one of the very few Japanese-made cars that I actually respect, only because I know that on the streets, it's actually really fast. It has all-wheel drive, and it has a very powerful launch control, which only the newest of SRT cars are able to beat easily, the ones that have superchargers in them. This thing on a drag strip returns high tens. A Demon can easily kill it. Hellcat with some work can, do the same thing. But me personally, I don't believe in mods because, you know what I say. It's like I don't want to make anybody upset. But I don't believe in modding because I actually prefer warranties and this, that, and other. So anyway, the Nissan GTR has done very well. That all-wheel drive and having a shitload of power and everything has allowed it to beat Lamborghinis and Ferraris that cost way more than it. So you have to give credit where credit is due. But ultimately, the reason why I bring up the Nissan GTR is because it's obvious that the people who are interested in one of these Supras, what they really wanted was a car that could be tunable to have the kind of power that somebody's getting out of a GTR and to yet be a practical everyday car. Now, it's obvious to me that a lot of people, even though they tried to talk it up as much as they could, all these quote unquote fake ass professional reviewers, these clickbait artists, these clickbait reviewers, these quote unquote professionals, my ass. So anyway, they were trying to play up the FRS. They tried to play up the Subaru BRZ, but it became apparent as soon as you drove the damn thing that it only had 200 horsepower. Now, yeah, you always get these annoying morons. Oh, yeah, well, on the twisties and the mountains, yeah, this thing can handle so well and everything. Yeah, sure it can if you're driving at fucking 30 miles an hour around. Yeah, I'm really sure it could handle that well because it's like really small and light and low to the ground and everything. Thing about it is the second you get in a drag race versus just about any of these guys with scat packs or any of these $40,000 challenges or charges, you're getting your ass whipped. A Jeep with launch control take you out too. A Jeep not using launch control take your ass out too. And that thing weighs 5,200 pounds and you're still going to get your ass whipped. Now, I'm not saying that 335 horsepower is slow, but if you have a turbocharger, one of these small-ass turbochargers linked to a 3-liter turbo, the amount of time that it's going to even take you to spool that turbo up and to make that thing, able to be fast enough just to get out of its own way is going to be laughable. This is not the car that my opponents, those Toyota enthusiasts, this is not the car they want. There's a number of reasons why this isn't the car they want, but it's obvious to me that this isn't the car they want, and I'm just listening to them talk about the fact that this isn't the car they want. That's why I think it's funny that Toyota didn't listen to them and returned to them this piece of garbage. The first major problem is there is no manual transmission at launch. Well, the enthusiast that wants this type of car absolutely wants a manual. And guess what? You ain't getting it. So the thing about it is, for you people who want a manual, you're going to have to wait like 2 years until after this thing launches. And then if you really did want this car that bad, you're probably going to have to put down a deposit on it and just wait. These things are coming with automatic transmissions. The reality is more and more people, they just don't have the money to have 2 cars, so they're forced to share cars with their wife and whoever else is in their household who drives. And most of the time, those other people don't know how to drive manual. So guess what? The automatic transmission, the free market is basically spoken. The automatic transmission dominates, and there's nothing you can really do about it. Like, you could say, oh, yeah, well, I'm just going to drive a manual because Generation Z, they only know how to drive automatic and blah, 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 blah. The simple fact of the matter is you're not getting a manual when this thing comes out. Toyota doesn't want to have a manual, and I think in order to deal with certain emissions laws in certain places, they have to end up having an automatic transmission because the automatic transmission basically jumps to the highest gears it can find in order to save as much gas as it can and in order to meet their emissions programs and whatnot and profiles in the computer. So that's just what it is. No manual. Now, the Nissan GTR didn't have a manual too, but nobody bothered talking shit about it simply because it was so goddamn fast. It was beating everything else, including everything you possibly could have afforded with a manual. And one person told me a joke. They was like, oh, yeah, well, getting in a car without a manual is like getting into an airplane that just has a button that says fly and stop. And I'm like, you're an asshole. Why would you even say something that's stupid? The simple fact is anybody can drive it, which is one of the reasons why the GTR did so well. It's because it was a relatively affordable supercar that anybody can drive. Guess what, enthusiasts out there, and I'm talking to all of you, you know who I'm talking to. You and your silly manual, your days are over. That's the bottom line. Your days are over. The free market has spoken. The government regulations and emissions and all that has spoken too. Guess what? Your days are just over. You can forget it. Your third pedal, you're going to have a dead pedal. So you put your left foot on that little plastic piece of shit to your left and just rest your foot there because you don't have the third pedal. Driving a manual is ridiculous. I live in New York City. Now, I know a lot of people live out in the countryside. Yeah, okay, great. If you got more space, no problem. But the simple fact of the matter is, I can't have one of you morons rolling back in your car or accidentally running into my car. And I've seen this shit happen because you get into your car and the clutch slips, and next thing you know, you run into the next car. Either that or you're accidentally backing up into a car because you didn't realize that your foot wasn't on it and you were on an incline. Nobody's got time for that shit. So guess what? The manual's dead. Sorry. It's actually a damn shame that I look into this car and all I see is pieces from BMW's parts bin with the logical layout of a BMW 3 Series. You know, I look in this engine bay and I don't see much space for me putting like turbochargers and stuff in there. So guess what? All you ricers out there who were waiting for this car and you're, oh man, I'm going to get me a Toyota Supra. I can be like Paul Walker. Yeah, well, guess what, guys? You see this engine bay? You see how little space there is in there? The only turbochargers you're going to put are on the back of your seats. That's about it. Sorry. So don't take it personally. The mere fact that just about any of these SRT cars that rolls up on you now, especially used Hellcats that are coming off of lease, these used Hellcats that are going to cost less than this new Supra is going to cost, you're going to end up lining up against one of these things and you're going to get your ass handed to you. I just hope that whoever it is that lines up with you and puts these videos on YouTube of them just absolutely annihilating you as soon as you come out with your little Supra, I just hope that those people don't have many subscribers so I can be one of the first people to push the subscribe button. So this way I can be with them from the very beginning and that their career smoking these damn Supras, I can follow their career as far as it'll go. There was a Supra that was $121,000 and it was listed online. And now its price after the unveiling of this 2020 monstrosity has jumped to $500,000. Now, obviously, none of you've got $500,000, or at least none of you who, are probably listening to this video. Most of you are like children who want to argue with me about twisty roads and Volkswagen powerful. Somebody was on my videos talking about how powerful their Volkswagen was. I was like, I don't care. I just don't care. So the thing about it is what I was going to say was, this old Supra, this classic Supra, yeah, you could forget it. It's dead. Toyota's basically killed it. Modern government emission standards have killed it. Europe is going electric very soon. So basically your Supra is going to end up being a plug-in someday. And that's just it. And the thing about it is the new Supra, the major problem that I see with it is they want $50,000 plus for this thing. Now, it's going to end up being a repeat of the Scion FRS and the Toyota 86 Subaru BRZ. It's going to be a repeat. It's relatively underpowered. I hope that perhaps it's a little easier to tune than I expect that it is, because the way this thing looks, it doesn't look like it's going to be back in the 90s where you could just so easily steal an engine after you blow your own engine and then just drop a new engine in this thing. The engine in this thing right now looks like a joke with that plastic engine cover. So that basically means it doesn't even get hot enough to melt the plastic. That's how boring that engine is. But so what I'm seeing is basically $50,000 plus, $50,000 to $55,000. If that's how much this thing costs, then how are all of you deeply indebted college students who just get your first job and can't afford to pay your rent and your student loans and your mom's utility bills? It's like, you're not going to be able to afford this thing, not at no $50,000. In fact, the vast majority of you couldn't afford the Scion FRS when that thing came out, and that thing was like $30,000 for a small-ass little car, which you could, strangely enough, you could actually get a manual in it. So, me personally, I know absolutely nothing about the history of these cars, and I don't mind admitting it because the simple fact is I really don't care. What I do care about is the fact that when I get a chance to line up on one of these stoplights next to one of these things, I'm going to be making another fun, crazy video just laughing and screaming at it because because I already know before I even line up against it, it has absolutely no chance of winning. So, in a way, I know it's not fair, but, that's just what it is. But for me, really, the reason why I wanted to make this video is because for me, it's a classic example of these companies not giving the buyer what they want. Now, despite the fact that I don't like Toyotas, I'll probably never buy a Toyota. I'll spend money on Hyundai before I ever spend money on a Toyota. What I can say is that it does kind of bother me watching these companies not give the customer what they really, really want. The customer who might still be online for this thing, because I think a lot of people who were online for this thing have gotten off that line at this point. What they wanted was, if I were to design this car, I would make this car easy to put big turbochargers in. I'd give you your manual if you really wanted it. I'd give you basically an automatic transmission as an option and your silly ass manual. And I would have made this thing look like a goddamn missile. But these people at Toyota, they did to you exactly what the people at FCA did to me with the Trackhawk and what they've done to me with these silly, ugly look-alike cars where you can't even tell which model it is. They did exactly to you what they did to me. So now I'm seeing that this trend is continuing as we move towards electric cars. And to some extent, that part about it, watching the corporations just screw you, actually bothers me. But once again, me personally, I'm not a Supra fan. I don't know anything about the Supra history. I don't care. All I'm waiting for is a chance to line up against one of these things so I can just make a crazy fun video just screaming at it and berating it and talking bad about it. But it's kind of not that fun because I already know that day's coming.